No. Staging is just how far out the cancer has grown. Is it just in my uterus or has it spread to my adnexa?
Okay.
That's what staging is.
So with those pathologies, those are just.
Those are from the trophoblastic cells, the haywire trophoblastic cells. You're still looking at me like you don't understand.
Yeah, I guess I'm just a little confused because I'm trying to figure out, like, are they more specific to what can happen in the endometrium or?
Yes, they're very specific.
Okay.
They're very specific because I have to have had a molar pregnancy to get those. Okay? Somewhere down the line, I've had a molar pregnancy and now this is happening to me. I had a DNC that was all removed and now it's come back because they only left one cell. Okay? And then that one cell, they call it a seed and it could proliferate.
Mr. Park, that means the invasive mold will turn to carcinoma.
Yeah, it'll turn into a choriocarcinoma.
And then turn to placental site trophoblastic.
No, this is a total different thing.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so when we look at the endometrium, we always want to take a measurement and it's always outer to outer. If there's fluid inside the endometrium, we do not measure the fluid. Okay? Our machines can do a volume. It's a length plus a width plus a height. Okay? We can use power color on it or power Doppler. Power color is just color. Doppler is where I actually, do a waveform. If I see fluid in the posterior cul-de-sac and the anterior cul-de-sac, I'm gonna go up to Morrison's pouch and see how bad the ascites is. Okay? There's such of a thing as regular ascites that is anechoic, and you can also have malignant ascites, which is not anechoic. Of course, CT and MRI, that's gonna help with the staging process because we're very limited on what we can see. So they'll send it to another imaging modality. Because it could be just endometrial hyperplasia where my endometrial tissue has just gotten way too thick. I was probably on tamoxifen for breast cancer. I could have endometrial polyps. Polyps turn to cancer, so they always want to check on those. I could have a fibroid. A fibroid, they want to check on those at least annually to see if there's any changes. Or I could have had a positive pap smear.
Why is it a fibroid not removed so quick? Why is it makes a woman bleed so much? Why?
I don't know. Why have a hysterectomy as a routine? They can do myomectomies, but they just grow back. Because if you're, the only way to stop them is to do a hysterectomy.
Right.
Okay. Then that would mean that we would have no African Americans because it's predominant in African Americans. So if they were ever diagnosed with a fibroid and everybody had to have a hysterectomy, then their culture would disappear. Okay, because there's not you have heavy bleeding, and I've seen some big ones.
Yeah, I've seen where it covers the whole uterus.
It covers the whole, I've seen a uterus from here to here.
You can still carry a baby?
No, you couldn't carry a baby with that many fibrils.
Right.
You know, so what they do is they put them on hormones to see if that regulates the growth. They can go in there and embolize them, meaning they find the arterial supply and they pump like a gel into the artery, and it loses its blood supply and it starts necrosis. It'll just die. So they can embolize it, they can remove them. The last choice is going to be a hysterectomy.
شبيهة في التشخيص.
يعني ممكن
هو اندوميتريال كانسر. هو اندوميتريال كانسر. انت لما تدير اندوميتريال كانسر.
Because if your body is predisposed for fibroids,
زي بعض. لازم مفيش ديagnosis الاحتمالات المتوقعة في الحالة اللي قدامك في الصورة اللي أعطاها.
yes, yes, because we know which one's 1, 2, 3 because we go from the previous exam.
احتمالات.
Yeah.
فريش دايجنوز مش دايجنوز مش سبوت دايجنوز فريش دايجنوز ليس سبوت احتمال.
Can lay outside.
What?
That's another
Yeah,
thing.
we
That's
had a
another.
patient one time. She couldn't check. She couldn't put the intravaginal.
Oh, yeah, that's called a uterine prolapse.
Yeah, and then she said she
Mhm.
just pushed it.
They
in.
push it back.
Yeah. So what is that one a uterus
What does that
outside or
have?
something else?
That's just called a uterus prolapse.
And is that the uterus is actually
coming out?
That's where the uterus is coming out.
Yeah,
No
but
wonder.
she was like, she said, no, hold on. She went to the,
Bathroom and pushed it back in?
no, she went to Shayna's to ask her what she's supposed to do. And then I think the patient, she said she knows what she's supposed to do. She just pushed it back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
By
Yeah, that's
the
called a
hand.
prolapse.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And
it
it's
just comes
weird.
out.
It looks like an alien between your legs.
Yeah, yeah.
It's scary.
She
And
said she don't have insurance because she wanted to do the hysterectomy.
Yeah.
To remove it, but she didn't have insurance or anything.
She was like,
she's like, my in-law, my Hispanic old ladies are always like, don't do that or you're whatever. So it's gonna fall out.
Yeah,
And I
because
was
it
like,
does. Because it will. It will. No, it really can. Okay, leiomyosarcoma. It's a smooth muscle origin. It's 3% of uterine tumors, and it can metastasize. Risk factors are nulliparity, over age 50, obesity, pelvic radiation, and tamoxifen. They're usually going to be intramural, the myometrial layer. They're fleshy, they're hemorrhagic, they can look necrotic. They have infiltration borders, meaning the borders are going to be kind of stellate. So where they have like little fingers that come out, like here's my leiomyosarcoma, and then it has little fingers that are infiltrating the rest of the myometrium. You'll have vaginal bleeding, pelvic or abdominal pain. The uterus will increase in size. They'll usually do a needle biopsy on it to find out what it is, and an MRI is going to be your best bet. They'll do a total hysterectomy. They can also do a peritoneal wash, meaning they'll stick a needle into your peritoneum and flush it with normal saline and then drain it back out. They can also do sampling of the lymph nodes, or they can just go ahead and do radiation therapy. You'll see a rapid growing heterogeneous mass. It can have acoustic enhancement depending upon how much is cystic inside there, because what happens with ultrasound is it travels through that water and then it causes a brighter echo behind the mass. And of course, you'll have increased flow. You'll do abdominal and vaginal bleeding because it does metastasize, so we want to make sure that we check the liver. We want to make sure that we don't have any lymph nodes, especially in the pelvic regions and around the aorta. CT and MRI are going to be the best. A PET scan is where Pat said that they inject a radioisotope and then they take imaging, and supposedly this radioisotope will tag a cancer. It's mostly for cancer screening. Our differential diagnosis, if I see a leiomyosarcoma, is it endometrial adenocarcinoma, an adenomyoma, a GI carcinoma, or a bladder cancer? So, Fallopian tubes, it is the least common cancer, yes.
When they're a patient with cancer and they're, they're checking the uterus, and you
Mhm.
said also the liver, is there ever an order where they order like pelvic and
Absolutely. Okay, so say I have ascites. Of course, I'm gonna go up to Morrison's pouch and I'm gonna take a picture. While I'm looking at Morrison's pouch, I see a mass in the liver. I'm gonna do with and without measurements, with and without color, sagittal and transverse, and that's all I do. It's called an incidental finding, and they'll order a full abdominal exam on that. Okay? Because I see it, I have to document it. Okay? The fallopian tube, it's a very aggressive cancer. It usually happens in my 60s. Infertility, nulliparity, low parity, meaning what? I only had like one child, maybe. PID, pelvic inflammatory disease, and a family history of ovarian cancer. All those can raise my chances of fallopian tube carcinoma. Most cancers of the fallopian tube are going to be adenocarcinomas, and the lab test for any type of a ovarian or fallopian tube cancer is the CA-125. But you have, it's non-specific because it can also have a CA-125 with fibroids, endometriosis, pregnancy, or PID. What is endometriosis?
The tissue of the uterus go other way, go and inflame and.
Yeah.
No, it's around
The endometrial cells get into my peritoneum, and they can coat my bowel, my bladder, my uterus, and they bleed every month, so it's very, very painful.
Bleed from.
Those women usually have a problem with fertility also.
It bleed from where? If it goes.
They're
through the-
endometrial cells, so they just bleed into my peritoneum.
And the blood accumulates and the
Yeah, the blood is just absorbed by my body, okay? If it is not absorbed, I can have an endometrioma, and that's the chocolate cyst, okay? And so. You can have, it can be asymptomatic. You could have abdominal pain, increased abdominal girth, meaning my belly got really big. Vaginal bleeding, I can feel something in my pelvis, and I'll have, what's another word for this? Hydrosalpinx. Hydrosalpinx. Okay, so the treatment for fallopian tube cancer is a hysterectomy, a peritoneal biopsy, lymph node sampling, and radiation or chemotherapy. Usually we can find it with vaginal imaging. It can be solid or cystic. You'll have an adnexal mass that's ill-defined. It will be sausage shaped because the fallopian tube is like a sausage. And I'll have a hydrosalpinx. This is a picture of a hydrosalpinx. This is called a hostra.
that down there is the fallopian tube?
All of this is the fallopian tube,
Oh, wow.
okay?
I see it.
If I measure it, I'm gonna measure it from here to here. Okay, because I have to find a hostra to be able to make the diagnosis. And so I'm gonna measure fairly close to the hostra.
So now we are looking for the fallopian tube from where?
This is the fallopian tube.
We're looking for it from which side?
Transvaginal.
So the
I'm gonna see
fluid-
this in my adnexa,
Yeah,
and I know it's, I'll have to, I'm gonna see this in my adnexa. I'm not gonna know what it is. Okay, I'm gonna skip it. I'm gonna find my ovary to make sure my ovary is separate. Is this my ovary or is it the tube? I'm gonna find my ovary, take my imaging of my ovary, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna observe this before I go to the other side. Anytime I have something that I know is gonna take more time, I just skip it and go to the next one. Okay?
to know if it's regular or irregular. When you
Yeah,
go
I'm
to
gonna
the other
elongate this also and find out what it does.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Lynch.
Oh, thank you.
I know. Blah, 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 blah.
It's kind of